I'll bring you through the IRC application process. Okay. Okay, so I'll go through basically funding, the application process, the timeline you can expect, and when you need to have things ready for, what's expected of you during a PhD if you do decide to go for it, what's it actually like to do a PhD, and I forgot to edit out those two last sections. Okay, so I go into funding first. It's a 22k stipend. This year it was 19k, but they're amping it up by 3k. So it's a little below minimum wage, which isn't really ideal. The thing about it is, if there is another bout of inflation, you can track the increase in the stipend from 19 to 22k directly to inflation. So no amount of political lobbying will actually make it go above and beyond that. You can expect it to be a little bit below minimum wage even if inflation hits in again. An unfortunate thing is that it's tax-free. So that means no PRSI, which means you don't get like a rent allowance. And it's surprising how many things require you to pay taxes in order for you to avail of social services. So that's not ideal. But then there are some nice things. So there's 5,750 euros towards your PhD tuition. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but PhDs, in the same way in which undergraduates cost money, they cost money too, but your grant awarding agency usually pays for it. Now, as it happens, college amped up the amount that they charge for their PhDs, so the school has to make up the deficit, but you won't have to worry anyways. It won't be coming out of your pocket. So the research expenses up to 3,250. We are theorists, so we don't have that many like actual research expenses, but what you can expect is you'll get a nice laptop, like an actually really nice laptop, probably like 1,200 euros worth of some fucking number crunching shit. Like it's good. You can expect to get that in your first year. Then there's like other stuff, like noise cancelling headphones. You can get them. You can get like a tablet and all that kind of shit. So you'll get specced out. Like the research expenses are there. And then another thing is that travel is encouraged. So if you're doing travel to the States, travel to the US, or they're the same thing, travel to Europe, that'll all get covered. All of your meals are brought up to like, I think, 30 euro a meal or something like that. It's pretty good. You can get you get alcohol up to 1/3 the price of the meal as well, included in the expenses. So it's actually not bad. So okay, I'm just going to go through the entire application process and what's expected of each. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There are no references anymore.
Oh,
there's no referees. They don't exist anymore in the application. They're gone.
Last 2 years ago when I applied, there were no references.
So I know that slide, and so mine might be a year outdated, I guess. But okay, well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. That was a right pain in the hole. Two referees besides your supervisor, which it's pretty tough to pull off. If you do one internship, you have to pray some lecturer likes you as well. Okay, well then we'll go on to the next section then, the degrees in education section. So I think generally a master's is quite a bit better. There's a section you can see on the right there where you'll be asked to, is there any more information to do with it? I would generally take that as an opportunity to insist on your module choice being relevant to the subject of your PhD. So I chose like condensed matter theory, and what else did I do? My thesis was particularly relevant. It was in the same field of computational physics, so I was sure to hammer on that in that section. Other things that's expected in this is you'd have a summary of you could just list the overall results from your first to third year. This is in the event that you're doing an undergraduate. So I guess what this means if you're an undergraduate is that second or third year actually kind of matter, because you won't have your fourth year results in time if you're applying directly from undergraduate. Of course, if you're doing a master's, that's different. You see, and then there's one other part of this section. This is like really vague stuff. So other education, I remember for this, I was involved in like the Laidlaw program, and they do like this weird, like, oh, learn to speak out loud kind of thing. And I was like, fuck it, I'll throw that at it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just anything you can pull that's vaguely of relevance that you might have some certificate for, just can throw it at it. Okay. So yeah, research achievement section. I mean, this heavily emphasizes the need for internships, as many as you can. Like, as starting, I know it's very difficult, and people don't have the money for internship, but if you can start in second year, third year, because when actually in terms of research achievements, people you'd think to look at the question that it might be just be publications, but no, if you've created data sets, which most of us will do if we're doing internships at the undergraduate level, because the maths is so, the actual cutting edge maths is so beyond us. We're restricted to like the computational realm, and the best we can do there is just crunch some numbers, create data sets, and that's relevant for that section. So it's worth throwing in. If you do like a nice explanation of something, so I didn't have anything pertaining to that last exposition point, but Alex Farron. So like, one thing that he had, and he didn't apply for IRC, but have any of you seen his like Soliton animation thing? Right? He's basically made a web page where he goes through. He's got some animations on it of like solitons colliding, and a little bit of like explanation. It's like a mini Wikipedia page. That kind of stuff would belong there as well. It's like output of an internship. It's nothing cutting edge, but it's still you can still consider it research outputs, just even if it's just a reading project, right? So that's worth putting there. There's a work experience section. Generally you'll have to probably spend so much time on internships that you won't have much other work that's relevant to the PhD, other than like your voluntary stuff. So if you've been on committees and things like that, TA correction rules pretty relevant. Let's see what else. I can't think of another kind of work experience that might tie in there. Like if you were doing maybe something in like science communication as well, probably be relevant, because there's a heavy emphasis placed on like the dissemination of knowledge after or with the results of your PhD. So if you have any like outreach experience, throw it in there. Personal statement is pretty straightforward. I'd say get romantic with it. Why are you getting into it? Why are you getting into this area specifically? Do you have any particular attachment to it? So like for me, I was really into I remember my whole spiel was, right, I was like, okay, I was talking about how I was surrounded by the likes of Samson, right, who he would remind you, if you get any notions about getting into like hardcore theoretical stuff, that there's been some Serbian locked in a room since he was 12 studying differential geometry, right? Oh fuck, okay, it's hard to, I don't know how well I stack up against that. But one area where I'm sure the playing field is leveled is in computational physics, because there are certain phenomena which are behind the computational paywall. There are like emergent behavior and like Stefan Hutzler stuff. So I was like, okay, it seems to me like it's the most interesting area. Our ability to see into that domain is limited by the current amount of compute available. So we're all sort of at the same level. That no Serbian differential geometry is going to outpace me there. I basically went off a little bit about that, and just broadly speaking, physics and things like that. So if you've got a personal connection or opinion on your subject, I'd say let rip there. The career development plan. This is a huge part of the project. I don't just mean in terms of they weight it importantly. It's a fucking chunky part of the project. It was a huge word count that they ask of you. But it's where do you see yourself going after the PhD? Given the skills that are involved in this PhD, how that sets you up for the career you have in mind. And they're I guess insinuating the worst, right? But they ask you at the end, are you ready to jump ship if push comes to shove and get out of academia, right? And are you? How does this set you up for that? So you need to be ready and willing to answer that, I suppose. The research section, I have it condensed down here, but in truth, some of these sections are pretty massive, right? Like the lay abstract is only short. It was, if you're describing it to your aunt, give it a go. But the detailed proposal, so yeah, let me see. So like in my circumstance, right, this is like the broad overarching theme of what you're looking, the general thrust of your project, any concepts you might be trying to bridge or whatever, and then the methodology section is the specifics. So like, let me tie it back to my application. My thing was about like investigating symmetries in the context of like materials predictions, specifically in relation to like neural networks and what that might enable us to do and what the literature says is the potential of these kinds of approaches. But then in the methodology section, it's like, okay, if I actually want to act on this and investigate these kinds of things, I need to have, like mess about with this particular library, create this data so that I can run these tests. It's like, this is the general theme, general thrust, and this is like the specifics, the technical specifics, like what code bases you might be using. I'm not sure exactly what that would look like in a pure mathematical PhD, but yeah. Fair enough, yeah. Good. Any questions so far? Okay, yeah. Milestones and deliverables. So in my one, okay, there are specific tasks to be done. Stefano helped me write this one, and he's had a lot of success with these things. So I'm going to suggest this to basically everyone. He attached a risk assessment to each one. Like, I mean, how, like, say for example in the methodology section, I was like, okay, I'm going to need to create a data set to run and investigate this one. He would have like the task of creating the data set. It's a low risk, it's a low risk endeavor, and a contingency might be use a pre-existing data set that's not really specific to our case, and we'll just adapt it for that. So, and then you'd have that for basically every task in order of increasing risk. And of course, you should order these tasks in such a way that it's low risk starting off, as in the earlier tasks are just simpler, and those earlier tasks should correspond to like earlier in the timeline that you would have outlined later in the PhD proposal, right? So you want to structure PhD so that it's in order of increasing risk, right? Certainly don't want to put the most difficult task up front, right? So it's an obvious point, but just something to keep in mind. I mean, specialist skills is essentially derivative of your methodologies and milestones section. It's like, okay, I need to create a data set. What does that mean for you? It means I need to be proficient with Python. I need to be proficient with deep learning. I need to be good at talking to people so that I'm not banging my head against the computer, right? Like just like general skills that you'd imagine would be necessary to see the tasks through. The research dissemination section is kind of, I mean, these ones are as you'd expect, right? I mean, you go to conferences, make sure that people know about your research. These two are worth hammering on, and it's kind of a fluffy section, so you can lean a lot on these to get up the word count. I mean, if you're computational physics, you're making a library, right? You're making a piece of code that someone else can implement, check the results for themselves. The outreach, you have things like, you'll see it later on, during the course of your PhD, you're required to do to give a talk in the School of Physics in the Schrodinger Theatre towards all other postdocs and things like that. You cast that as part of your outreach, right? I mean, making others aware of your research. If you've any means to like, I mean, one thing you could throw down if you're interested, like you could say, hey, I'm gonna make a video explaining my shit and I'll throw it on the TPSA YouTube channel. You know, like whatever's available to you as a platform to spread your research, even if you don't intend on doing it, just throw it down. The supervisor section, have you worked with this supervisor before? Pretty important. You might not have, and I don't think that's not the worst thing, right? I think who's Chantal with?
Andre. So yeah, she hadn't worked with him before.
She had, okay.
No, she hadn't.
Well, she hadn't, no. And then there's another lady I know, she's doing she's in biology or microbiology, and she's an IRC, and I don't think she worked with her supervisor previously. So okay, it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. And if you do, definitely lean on that point. And the institution you've chosen. So assuming you choose here or maybe elsewhere, like specifically, why did you opt for this place? And there'll generally be, in this particular subject, there is a locus of talent, yada yada yada, right? Something along those lines. Yep. Ethics section. If you're going to apply, and just email me, I'll send you my ethics section. It's fine. It's like you're not messing with embryos. You're not doing military stuff. You're not stealing people's data.
Human cloning is number one.
There you go, and then you're out. Okay. Okay, yeah, timeline. So, you would probably need to have a supervisor lined up, like in the summer. That both of you are ready to slot time aside and say, we're gonna belt out this report or this application. So I would, well before the end of August, I'd have your supervisor lined up and have them agree to a PhD with you. I'd say like midsummer, July, June, or whatever, right? So yeah, then it comes around 5th of October. I mean, you'd want to start writing. You definitely want to start writing in August, because your supervisor, I promise you, is going to be ultra busy. So you need to have that to them, like 3.5 weeks in advance easily, because these things can get awfully close to the wire, and also it can on that application deadline, I've heard that the servers are usually jammed as well, or they can be. So you don't want to risk that. Like, you want to be ready, have it completed the day before. The research office endorsement is fine. Don't worry about that. Well, okay, but you need to do it, but don't worry about it. It's not really.
You don't need to do it. They do it. Like, I think once you submit your form, the research office will know that you've done it. So it's kind of a formality. I don't think you need to do anything beyond the submission that you already made.
I have to do something. Well, I'm glad they don't have to do it anymore.
I also, both my applications were at the maths department. So if it's a school specific thing, well, it shouldn't be if it's the university research office. But anyway, caveats apply to that statement.
Fair enough. Yeah, and then so the call outcome is April, but I mean you generally hear in February, right?
First round is
There's 2 rounds. So.
There is, but I've yet to hear of someone who got the first round and didn't get the second. I think it's actually once you get that first. I mean, I'm not. There's no guarantee, right? But I mean, it seems pretty likely you're going to get it there. Yeah, and then starting 1st of September. Okay, so then what's expected of you during a PhD? The final year thesis. So it's like 100,000 words. You're looking at 100 pages or something like that at the minimum, which actually probably isn't that bad over the span of 4 years, right? You've got a vibe at the end where basically you present for an hour and you get fucking grilled. Usually by you'll have an external examiner. You'll be assigned one at the start of the PhD, and then you'll have to call in some other expert in the field, and then they'll collectively grill you. But I mean, I think I don't think they tend to go south, right? I mean, you can have a tough one, but they don't pull it off you at the end. So 18 months in, you've got your transfer exam. So it's firstly a report. It's like 10 pages of literature review, 15 pages of current work, and 5 pages of future work. Not too bad. It's actually kind of a good summary. And then there's an interview with your assigned external examiner you were given at the start of the PhD. So it would probably be a good idea to have somewhere between 2 and 5 papers you can manage to start a PhD. There's some, like you'll see online, there's like freaks that have managed like, I don't know, 8 or whatever, but you can get by on like 2 or 3 easily. Like it's well enough to fluff out a full PhD thesis. This is really annoying. You have to attend the postgrad seminars. They're on every Friday. It's something that you have to attend 75% of them, and then at one of these you're due to give a talk in 3rd or 4th year. So yeah, painful. Then there's labs. So labs is teaching experimental labs is no crack. But the computational ones are very nice. Computational ones are very actually enjoyable, right? I think, yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice teaching people to code, but the experimental, like, you have no clue what you're doing as a TA. Like. And I mean, labs is awful, but you only have like 3 hours maybe max in the week, which isn't really that bad. The assignment marking is optional, and then you have to attend group meetings. You'll usually have weekly group meetings, and then meet with your supervisor. So depending on how busy or how big the group is for your supervisor, you might have like a meeting every 2 to 4 weeks or something like that, individual meeting. Generally, what you'd like to do is there'll probably be postdocs in your group. So when the professor is too busy, and they will be, you just want to defer to their expertise instead, and they are very knowledgeable. So yeah. I mean, it's actually, I don't think it should be a determinant factor, but it's probably something to consider. You should have a look at the group and see, do they have enough postdocs? Because if they don't, it's not the end of the world, and you'll probably be fine if it's a small group. If it's a big group and it's very bottom heavy, right? It's a lot of PhDs. It's not perfect, it's not the ideal arrangement, right? Like postdocs are good to have. Okay. So the experience of a PhD, it's really good. Like actually peering through the literature, tracking all of the ideas. I mean, it's crazy the amount of thought people put into shit, and you actually get to see it in its entirety. When you have a new research lead, there's nothing like it. Okay, it is the best feeling, right? But very often they come crashing down. So dead ends are absolutely everywhere all of the time. They're routine. You just have to kind of get over. Like actually, I look towards like the older postdocs where like something not working just doesn't faze them anymore. Like it kind of reminds me. There's a guy in my group, Urvesh, and like when the code breaks, right, and he's doing some witchcraft on that computer, like, and when the code breaks, he just smiles. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's a roommate of mine. He was doing an engineering master's in electrical engineering, and like you've heard of like Arduinos before, right? They're the microcontrollers and shit like that. He was trying to design one that would like an automatic job feeders and shit. I was like, instead of using Arduino, we use like some Russian esoteric microchip with an instruction manual in a different language. Instead of like doing his work at a table, he'd sit on the floor and he'd have like those like horrid white lights. Instead of like a regular glowing yellow light, he'll just have this septic, sterile light. I was like, John, what the hell is your problem? You gotta learn to love the misery. So I think it's like a little bit of the same notion in a PhD. But I mean, like these bounce back and forth, and like this is definitely enough to pick you up, right? I mean, especially if you're in a field, you've seen like the culmination of these ideas, and you understand. Like you kind of go around thinking, no one else fucking gets it. Okay, this is you don't get how big a deal this will be if this pulls through, right? And you convince yourself like this next research lead, if this goes through, I'm met up. Okay, it's going to be fucking revolutionary, and then this happens repeatedly, right? But it's great crack. And yeah, the people in the field are astounding, right? If you're reading the top papers, the people with like H indices over 60 each, like that, the kinds of thought they're capable of is insane. The ideas they seemingly pull them out of their arse, and they're incredible, right? They're just so. I mean, imposter syndrome is like always coming and knocking, right? But you gotta just bat that shit away for a minute. And this is a probably a relevant point. I mean, like the salaries are awful. I mean, it's below minimum wage. However, you can look ahead and see like there does seem to be a salary premium down the line. Like you do tend to earn a couple more thousand year on year. Now, I'm not sure if it's actually enough to make up for the lack of earnings across the PhD, but like I don't think it'll be like this forever, right? So yeah, that's it. Do you have any questions?
Do you want to talk a bit about how the sections of the application are weighted in terms of marks?
I don't know how they're weighted.
Right.
Do you know how they're weighted?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Your research proposal is 40 marks. Then I think you as an applicant as a whole, so your personal statement, your background is another 40 marks. Then your career development plan is 10 marks, and your environment, so Trinity, for example, would be another 10 marks. So it's graded out of 100, and that's how it's split up, so you know where the emphasis is and what the important sections are.
Was it 40, 40, 10, 10, did you say? Okay, I just double checked the email.
That's how it works.
Also, usually, if you're worried about trying to make a good research proposal, often your supervisor will just write that for you.
Yeah.
Connor didn't because he's insane. Connor did his own because he's a bit of a madman, but well, mainly because your supervisor is going to have a better idea of the standard of knowledge in the field than you will, kind of obviously. So, if they're not doing that for you, you might have picked the wrong person.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Oh, I found out remote, but isn't the application also identity blind or something? So you can't really say you're a woman, which is kind of whatever. But like if you have, so I had some scholarships and awards which were for women, but I couldn't really say it on the application, so I don't really know how to navigate it. But I just heard I got a scholarship and didn't really explain what it was, but it worked out. So I just don't put it.
Do they say explicitly you can't mention gender on the?
Yeah.
It's
gender blind.
blind.
Right.
Well, you tick a box in the application that says which gender you are, but whoever is looking at your application assessing it doesn't, I guess, doesn't see your answer to that part.
Or could you say I got a scholarship based on gender?
I guess, yeah.
Anyways, any other questions? Okay. Yeah.
Right, so the next section we have is Quantum Science and Technology Masters in the School of Physics. I don't think I need to introduce myself. The wider TPSA YouTube. I'm Connor, Master's student, Quantum Science and Technology. I do TP in Trinity.
My voice is a little gone, so like if people can't hear me, just let me know. But my name is Shrishti, and I'm also doing the Quantum Science and Technology Masters. I did my undergrad in math and physics, and not in Ireland. So I think that was a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah. So the Master's in School of Physics, pretty self-explanatory. The outcomes are that you learn quite quantum information and realistic quantum physics in the sense that it's not highly theoretical for the sake of ideas, but is driven in the information theoretic world or in the open quantum systems world where you study quantum physics in reality, because you're never going to have a quantum system that is perfectly evolving according to the Schrodinger equation. There's always going to be some environment out there that exists, and you have to take into account when making realistic information processing devices like quantum sensors, quantum computers, and things like this. That builds into the next part of realistic quantum technology, and then you study it with computational methods, machine learning, Python, quantum machine learning, no experiments at all. You do not see a lab. That is not in the picture. So for TPs, it's great in that sense that you can do something with computers or with quantum physics that does not directly mean you have to do an experiment.
In terms of like the main three things, if people have a background in quantum, the main three research area in quantum today could be classified as what? Quantum foundationals, quantum simulation, and then quantum algorithms. The good thing about this master's program is that you guys have a theoretical background. We do talk a lot about the technological implementation, but the theory building, so like for your first semester, the classes that you take, personally for me, there was a huge like the slope of learning that you have to develop those quantum foundationals. That's really helpful, and I think your theoretical background might like just go really easily into the hard math, because you do jump into like some higher level math pretty quickly. And then the implementation part is like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, that's okay. Like, yeah.
And also there's a module based around kind of the quantum industry where you hear talks from people actually doing research for quantum startups or for Google. And a lot of them are actually TP graduates, so they just go through the mailing list of who's finished TP or PhD here, send them an email and get them to talk. But it gives you a better idea of the field as a whole, so you're not just sat in lectures, listening to physics or reading notes, doing assignments, you're actually getting an idea of what the field is like in the wider world, which is great. Someone's at the door. Oh, I got it. Just saw that left. And that's really interesting, as well as we have modules with people teaching it from outside of Trinity. At the moment, we have a guy, Tony, from the University of Malta, teaching us about many-body quantum physics. So you get those perspectives as well, and the opportunities to interact with these people that you wouldn't get to see normally. Then for the rest, we just have the requirements of 2-1. That's fine, even with a 2-2. I think they just interview you to come in. But in Trinity, you're fine, you're set. Then you can do any background. There's been engineers before this year. There's computer scientists, math student, mainly physics, but you'll get through it anyway. And then all the assessment is CA or oral exams. No more RDS, no more written exams. That is in the past, and it's great. So the assignments are doable, mostly. Then the oral exams are, if you're confident, sit down in a room with a professor and a second examiner, and you just talk to them, have a conversation with them. They might ask you, are you nervous? So it seems like they care how you feel going in. So, yeah. The grades come out later, and then you can judge for yourself how much they really cared. And all lectures are Monday to Wednesday, so if you have a part-time job, they have a practicality in that sense that you're meant to study outside of lectures, but you can have a job or a lot of tutor for student maths as well, and it gives fresh homework, do things like that, so you're not fully just doing masters with no other option of having an income or something like that.
There is an additional part to the assessment. This is not just a taught course, but also a research course. So at the end of our learning modules, which will end in April, from May to June or July, we have to do a thesis work. That thesis work you can either do with an industry or you can do with a professor at Trinity. So if you're more academically inclined and you're like, I do want to just get into a PhD, it might be a better idea for you to do that master's thesis with a professor at Trinity or even elsewhere. Or we have the industry bucket, which is really helpful. So all the talks that Connor mentioned, so we've had Microsoft, Spacecraft, Moody's, which is a bank. I don't know what they were doing. It's cool. They'll give you a good high-paying job. And you can do an internship with them over the summer. With all these groups, you just apply and everything. But you do need to get some level of an academic output, even with an industry thesis or an industry internship. It is really helpful because a lot of theoretical students like ourselves don't know how the world outside of school works, which is just true. So I think this industry pipeline, if anybody wants to work above minimum wage, you should probably do this master's, and it can actually help you with the industry environment because you're getting a step-by-step introduction to the industry, and you're not just sort of thrown off the deep end on LinkedIn. So that's another benefit.
And with a lot of the industries in this field as well, it's not how do we get the profits up and everything like that. A lot of the companies are academic in a sense that they do research and publish papers or are founded by people who are coming out of university. So it's not this evil corporate overlord wondering how to make money. There are people out there with that academic background that are just going through the industrial route to get money for their research. So next we have the modules. So what this master's offers is a fixed list of modules. So other masters out there in the world might offer a module list where you pick what you want to do, whereas since this one is fixed, it has a better understanding of how they all fit together. So you're not going different lectures, people who have different mixtures of modules, and the professor doesn't really know who's doing what and who knows what. Everyone knows exactly what everyone else is doing. So you have that full, complete idea of when I'm done the masters, this has been planned in such a way that I have a complete skill set for the field as a whole. So you'll learn quantum information science, open quantum systems, quantum algorithms on the theoretical side. Then you will have material science and physical implementation, or even if that's not your speciality. If you're talking to someone whose speciality is that, you will know what they're talking about, but they could know what you're talking about, so you can better collaborate in that way. Oh, I designed a quantum algorithm that does this, but this person knows what the quantum computer is made from. I can better inform you how to put together the algorithm in such a way to make it more efficient. And you join it together in that sense, rather than being, I know algorithms and all these specialist bits, but I haven't a clue what's going on in this other area. So if you like that type of thing, this works in that way. If you like options, then that's just your personal preference. Either is fine. There's no objectively right way of doing it, but that's just how this master's works.
If anybody would be planning to apply for the IRC or even any of the scholarship or PhD programs, what I personally found helpful is because you have a pre-existing list of modules, you know who's going to teach them probably, but at least you know what the learning outcomes are supposed to be. Most of the PhD applications, in America, for example, they will be due by December, or in Europe, they will still be like IRC is due in October and stuff like that. So when you're filling out those applications, you yourself as an applicant have a better idea of what your end learning outcome is going to be at the end of your master's. And so if you have that background, you can translate it better in your PhD applications. Your PhD applications are not sounding like mystical magic. I hope I will figure out how to solve world hunger. You actually know what you're going to do, and that's going to make a stronger PhD application. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. Specifically with quantum science and technologies, I don't know if everybody here wants to stay in Europe. If that's your thing, fantastic. But if somebody is like, for example, planning to move to America, that's where I did my undergrad, so I know a little bit of their PhD systems. The way they qualify their applications is more, it's less quantity based, so it will be less based on, say, only your GPAs or only your marks and stuff. It's also a more holistic approach. So if you guys know more things, so like you know what the physical implementation of the quantum technology looks like you know what a transmon is, for example, and at the same time you also know what a quantum algorithm is, those guys will look at your applications more holistically, like, yeah, this person clearly knows what they're talking about, so they're not just shitting on their application. So they're more likely to give you money, which is what we all want.
Then for people coming from Trinity, say Module 1, Introduction to Quantum Information Science. For those of you who take John Gould's module in 4th year, this is literally the same thing. He does the same lectures, minus the quantum optics part, like literally the same lectures. But then he does it fully CA, and the assignments are harder, so at least if you're seeing the lectures again, you can put the time into actually learning the assignments and working that way and getting a more hands-on approach to the material without having to worry about the lectures. The second module is the quantum industry one, where you do talks. There's not so much lectures with this. First semester is Python courses, so if you're worried about your computational skills, you can pick them up, and they're taught from people from ICHEC, the Irish Centre for High-End Computing, so that's quite cool that you get other people in, you learn from specialists in computing and so on. And during the Christmas break, you then have a Python project based on some quantum physics problem. You take a paper and try to reproduce some of the results, which is cool, and then they come in varying difficulties, so you can take it to your own skill set that you feel. Second semester, and it gets a lot more intense. You do machine learning, quantum many-body physics, like lots of different split-up modules. And then you have the talks from the industrial speakers as well, that where possible, they will be in Trinity, but they could be on Zoom as well. And you'll have the opportunity to interact with them and learn about the field as a whole. Open quantum systems is a cool theoretical module. It's really nice for TPs, I think, because it's very maths intensive of differential equations, but combining it with realistic quantum physics and decoherence. It's very, very much any research problem in quantum physics that isn't highly foundational will involve open quantum systems, so it's such a crucial module for anyone going into quantum physics research. And then it's assessed through 50% oral exam and 50% on Python notebooks that include analytical handwritten questions and also Python work, so you're able to tackle problems that you can't just solve on a sheet of paper and get to push that to a higher, more research applicable level by developing the code, say, to solve the Lindblad equation and stuff like this. And it's not the end of the world. You're not going to do crazy packages or have to buy a new laptop that can run it. It'll be fine. And then material science is less of a TP module. This is the materials we use for quantum technology. There's a lot of optics in it. It's an oral exam where you get to pick something to present on, which really helps because you can't spend half an hour talking about, I'm really passionate about how we detect photons, and then that's it. It's less TP of the module, but you'll survive. The rest are second semesters. They have physical implementations, again, more experimental one, but it's not too bad. There's actually not much maths in it. It's more talking about physics. So yeah, we have an assignment in at the moment where you write 2 or 3 pages about ion trap quantum computers, which it's doable, not the most energizing assignment, let's say, but you make it to the end and you don't age too much in the middle. And then quantum computational algorithms is a better module for TPs, or I'd say the more physics background you get in Trinity. Again, it's 50% oral exam, 50% Python notebooks, or you learn IBM software Qiskit to get you more hands-on quantum coding and stuff like this. So you sign up for an IBM account, you get access to their quantum computers, which is nice, and you get that more insight again into the field and what do companies use to run these programs. And then the last module is the project. And luckily, each of the professors that teach these don't give off like evil professor overlord vibes. They're willing to help in most cases. Some of them might not be the best at replying to emails.
You just have to hunt them down.
Yeah, that's as bad as it gets, I would say. Then, as well as this, because the module or the master's is quite flexible, this semester we had the opportunity to sign up to HPC modules for the School of Maths Masters. That was open to us as well. But you're still quite busy. But the opportunities are there to go beyond just what is being taught here and know what direction you want to go in the future. If you like that high performance computing option, you can pick modules from that and combine that with the credits you get from these modules as well. And then also Felix Binder does optional advanced quantum information lectures on Wednesdays, where either him or postdocs in his group just pick some advanced topic. You sit there and learn it. There's no assessment. It's not a formal module. But there's those opportunities for extra learning and interaction with professors, postdocs, PhDs, and all of this that you can learn from or integrate yourself within research groups and find some sort of topic you like as well. So there is that easygoing learning in some cases as well as the formal learning from these modules. The application is standard master's application, personal statement. For a master's, it's not as bad as a PhD. You don't have to say, like, this is the most passionate thing in your life and it's the only thing you can see yourself doing. You can be more realistic on, yes, I would really like to do this. This suits my skills for my degree, etc. CV, so your research, like internships, then anything else. If you've worked on committees relevant to physics, done science outreach again, put that on it, just show you're the type of person they want in the master's. Transcripts, that's a formality. Grades aren't the hardest bit to get for this master's, really. That's fine. Then 2 references, that's all right. Depends on who's reading the references, how much they matter. When John Gould was the master's coordinator, I remember him saying, references are just to verify you're not a psychopath. And that's it. So
that's also just John Gould. So
yeah.
like, get good references. Don't ask your mom to write your reference.
Yeah. Then what it means by assessing groups are it doesn't wait until the application deadlines pass and then everyone gets an offer. If, say, 10 applications are submitted, they read those, make a few offers, wait for the next batch to come in, and so on. So it's a rolling process that if you applied now, you could get an offer in a couple of weeks' time. You don't have to wait until the actual deadline passes at the end of the summer and are stuck waiting. Then there's also scholarships. Here, Marcel to talk about.
So we have one that's the Microsoft Scholarship. So it's an association with Microsoft. I think that just means Microsoft is giving you the money, not Trinity, because Trinity famously doesn't have a lot of money. Microsoft Scholarship is for women and gender minorities. I got one of these, which is very helpful. It essentially covers like most of your tuition fees. And in the past years, I know some figures. I think there were just like fewer people who got that scholarship, and there's just like a specific amount of fund, and so they were also able to give them stipends and everything. I don't think we're doing it this year, which is like sad, but whatever. We also have this thing for our admissions. I don't know how applicable this is in this room, but if you have friends who want to study quantum science, we aim for like almost a 50-50 equation or like an equalization when it comes to gender demography, because we don't want men to do all quantum science. I think women should also do quantum science sometimes. And that is a really good initiative. So if you do have friends who might be apprehensive, and this happens with a lot of women and gender minorities, where they might be apprehensive in pursuing higher education in physics because, well, imposter syndrome, obviously, but also they might expect a more hostile environment if everybody else is a male presenting person. So that is something really good about our master's program, that we do aim for that gender equality. And then we have general Trinity scholarships available as well. Some people do have that in our class.
Yeah, they're just, people can look on the Trinity website. There's something I think called European Excellence Awards for if you're an EU student, where you get an offer for a master's, you submit that along with kind of personal statement of how you can have an impact on the Trinity community, etc. So on. and then they can offer to you if the application is good enough, and it takes £2,000 off your fee. So that's another helpful thing, especially as master's fees are quite expensive. So if you feel like you can have that impact or have something to say about, I've done this in my undergraduate time at Trinity and can carry it on postgraduate, it could be something to apply to just to get that extra bit off the fee. That would be helpful.
Yeah. There's another, I don't know if there are international students here, but there's also a global excellence scholarship, which is also helpful. I do want to talk more about the Microsoft one, but it's not going to be helpful to most of you in this room. But even with that scholarship, it's going to be more questions about, because Microsoft Scholarship is essentially you presenting yourself as a leader in this community or this discipline. So the questions are, do you perceive yourself as a leader? Are there experiences in your previous background where you have shown yourself in a leadership position? It helps if you have academic leadership positions, but even if you don't. So for example, I had a debating background, so I said a lot about I can say things, and that's why they gave me the scholarship. So it's just put in all your leadership experiences. So if you guys are in your second, third year or whatever, even if you can't apply for that scholarship, you can apply for other scholarships, which also look for leadership experiences. So just try to move out of your academic bubbles and get some positions in, say, TPSA and other stuff, because it translates a lot in your PhD applications where everybody's quote unquote smart. So the way they distinguish the candidate they want versus the one that they don't is probably going to be the difference of who can actually talk to public and who cannot. So super important to be a leader. Good things.
That's it. If there's any questions, you can ask either of us. Our emails are there, or if it's more about the actual master's administrative side, you can email the actual quantum masters people as well, as they have an email for dealing exactly with that.
Yeah.
So what's the style of the oral exams?
I think we all had almost different experience with our oral exams, but last semester, for the quantum material science, because we don't really have continuous assessment, it's just the oral exam. The first part of it was me going to the professor and then Daniel, the teaching assistant, you can say, and they said, okay, what is it that you would like to present? So the first part of the oral exam was your time. You give a model. For example, I presented the James Cummings model. I think you presented. We didn't plan this. It's just great minds think alike. And so we present that James Cummings model. I am going to give essentially a 10-minute talk explaining those things to the professor and the teaching assistant, just so they can see that you actually gain something from the lecture. And then the next 10 minutes were supposed to be them asking you questions. That 10 minutes of them asking you questions, the other oral exams is effectively that. The professor's asking you questions. But the way at master's level, I think it would differ from an undergrad is it's more of a conversation. So you're not expected to have the right answer all the time. It's more so okay, what if you have a quantum system that is communicating or that's out in the environment? How can you design an equation for that that will be different from the Schrodinger equation? This is an open-ended question. So I'm not supposed to write down exact equations, but I'm more so supposed to talk the gist of, okay, maybe we should account for something called as noise. Maybe we should account for decoherence. There are these techniques to account for these things. And then if you get stuck at some point, this is big plug to do this master's program. Our professors are absolutely fantastic. They do care. At least in my case, they were very helpful. They were they would help you get to the answer yourself, but they are very supportive people. So that oral examination is effectively to show that you can be a good communicator down the line if you do end up in academia or industry, because I think all of us famously have experiences with professors who are smart people but bad teachers. And I think the oral exams are aimed at preventing or sort of to bridge that gap. So you shouldn't worry a lot about it.
Yeah. For the materials one, it was more just conversation, purely speaking. For the open quantum systems one, it was whoever's been examined stood at a whiteboard kind of explaining things through, roughly sketching out equations or likely solving a problem in quick steps or quick calculations, just to help with the explanation to the answer. So there's slight differences, but by and large, it is that conversational style.
They wouldn't ask you to solve a numerical on board. We don't do that anymore.
Okay. Although if you're doing too well, they will take notice of that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, thank you.
All right. Hi guys. I'm Jack. I'm doing a master's on the field strength and gravity here in Trinity with John Quill. I'm going to talk a bit about how that's been and why you might want to do it. Yeah. So first, like the formalities. What it actually is, what it entails, a year-long taught masters. So there's 2 semesters of lectures, 3 modules each side, and then a summer research semester with a supervisor and a research project. There's also a reading project that we do. You get a supervisor for in the first semester, take a research paper with a certain topic, read on it, and then present a 45 to 50-minute seminar in semester 2 or late semester 1. So technically there are 4 streams for the masters. There's what are they called? Advanced, fundamental formal, advanced formal, fundamental computational, advanced computational, I think. In reality, I mean, I think it's the 3rd or 4th year the master's existing. There's 8 of us doing it this year, most ever. I don't know about last year, but maybe the year before there was like 2. So I don't think anyone has done anything other than advanced formal, which is this kind of stuff. So path integral quantum field theory, lattice field theory, conformal field theory in first semester. And then we're doing scattering amplitude in QFT and ADS CFT. These 2 can change. This one, I think, in the past would have been supersymmetry. ADS CFT is called modern topics in theoretical physics. So a different lecturer takes it every year. It was integrability a year or 2 ago. But then string theory in semester 2 is always there as well. On the website, so then the computational aspect or the computational stream you can take is you split kind of half field theory modules with the high performance computing masters that the school masters as well. So you do a bit of C++ programming, some numerical methods. And in that case, I think you would drop some of the more mathematical physicsy modules and you would go more towards lattice QCD. So you would do lattice field theory, you'd do path integral quantum field theory, you wouldn't do conformal field theory, you might not do string theory, that kind of thing. But I don't know or think anyone has done that before. There are a few people who I think are doing PhDs in lattice QCD or in high performance computing that have been to a few of our modules and have taken like lattice field theory with us. But yeah, and like on the website, this is another kind of key point I wanted to mention, and we'll talk a bit more about the kind of style and the atmosphere of the masters. On the website says that the prerequisites for the advanced formal stream, which is the one that we're all doing, are quantum field theory and general relativity, because obviously you jump straight in with path integral QFT, conformal field theory onto string theory. I didn't do general relativity at undergrad. I didn't do diff jam, I didn't do calculus and manifolds, because I didn't like analysis. And there's that big long, I don't know, is everyone here in, yeah, TP. There's a big long stream of things. And so I sat down with Marius, who is the course director, and asked, like, am I gonna, like, I'm happy to do it. Like, I want to learn different geometry, I want to learn GR. And he was like, you can do that if you want. You can go to those lectures. You can also use your reading project as a way of catching yourself up. And like, there was no strict, no, you don't have that prerequisite, so we can't enroll you in these courses. What you find is, like, you get to know the School of Maths and the people in the School of Maths very well, and the atmosphere of it, which is very much, it's sort of encouraging, like, interesting, deep learning. So, as in, like, I was able to then do a reading project on gravity, catch myself up on differential geometry, get myself up to speed with general relativity. I didn't really, I got up to where I needed to go. I still actually, I don't know, like, black hole GR that well, because I got all the fundamentals of it, and then I stopped. Well, no, I didn't stop, sorry. Cian just was out the window there. He was waving at me and distracted me. It was very unprofessional of him. Give out. So yeah, as in the reading project that I did, mine was on the duality between gravity and gauge theory. So once I learned enough of gravity to map it to gauge theory and what I knew of gauge theory and build together a seminar, I had like caught myself up enough. So yeah, the masters itself is motivated by the problem of quantum gravity, which is like a nice buzzwordy type thing, but is also like what we're doing, what we're learning about. So it very much feels like theoretical physics year 5. You know, it's like how I've been describing it to people who've asked me what I'm doing is it's almost like an integrated masters in that by the end of 4th year in theoretical physics, we've kind of come so far. We've hit quantum field theory, and we've hit general relativity. We've done statistical physics. You start looking at masters abroad, and you kind of see, most of the ones in Europe are 2 years, and they do quantum field theory from the start, and they do geo and they do diff jam, because a lot of physics undergrads or pure maths undergrads or even theoretical physics undergrads are only 3 years on the continent in Europe or abroad in America, that kind of thing. So for us, there's like no fat really in this masters. You're like, okay, you know GR and you know quantum field theory, let's like push on further and really dig into quantum gravity. So in that sense, it's nice because it's 1 year, and if you want to get to PhD level in quantum gravity, what I'm talking about there is like string theory, conformal field theory, black hole thermodynamics, like really, really rigorous mathematical physics. This master's will get you there in a year, just by virtue of the fact that you were exposed to that kind of high level stuff. Like in these 2 modules, ADS CFT, actually in these 3 really, well, mainly ADS CFT and string theory, our main resources for the lectures is not textbooks, it's reviews that have been done in the past, say, 15 years. So like PDFs online from like people in the field. Like in scattering amplitudes, a kind of big section in the middle is a way of formulating amplitudes in quantum field theory using something called the BCFW recursion relation. The W in that is Witten, Ed Witten, if anyone's heard of him. The B in that is Ruth Brito in the School of Maths. So it really is like, and it's the kind of thing where like Ruth Brito about 20 years ago like came upon this new way of formulating amplitudes in quantum field theory, and then her and her group got to Witten, and then they verified it, they published the paper, and that's now in the textbook, which is like only recently been published. So I suppose what I'm trying to like sketch here is that you do 4 years of TP, and it feels like you've opened the door into a room with like 100 more doors. And none of them are going to lead you to the cutting edge of where you want to be. And it's like the more you learn about maths and theoretical physics, the more you come to realize how much you don't understand. So then it can feel like, oh my God, how am I going to do a PhD in theoretical? Like what I'm interested in is the maths of this, but I know that I'm not going to have any novel contribution for another 15 years, or so it feels like. So I suppose this year has kind of like illuminated for me, and I can kind of show you that like once you hit the end of 4th year, the like cutting edge isn't that far away, really. I mean, the cutting edge for like novel contribution is pretty far away, but as regards understanding the papers that are coming out now, and really, really trying to get into the weeds of string theory and of like I suppose differential geometry and black holes and all that kind of stuff. Like these kind of like key cornerstones of the fundamentals of the universe. Like when you pick TP as an undergrad, it's like, oh, if you're interested in problems of the fundamental issues of the universe, you know, come and learn, and you come, and it's like just maths. And it feels like you kind of go for years, like just do maths, and you're still like, I don't know how this is ever gonna, lead anywhere, get any like profound fundamental insight. But then the more you do it, the more it like slowly starts to go. If that makes any sense, I think. So yeah, sorry. The reading project. These are just some examples of stuff that we did and that we presented on: black holes in higher dimensions, thermodynamics, hydrodynamics, quark-muon plasma, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so why should I do this master's? I think I've talked a decent bit about this PhD. What I've said before, it really is like there's no fat. It will line you up for a PhD in like hardcore physics, theoretical physics. By the end, like a guy, Craig, just got offered one in Edinburgh, like today. Did you not know? Yeah, he got it this afternoon. So he had done an interview for it a while ago. Because like, once you hit 4th year and you start looking abroad, I suppose like to sketch the difference between the masters here and the masters you'd get abroad, is this one is 1 year long. It's like directly related to what we've learned in our undergrad. It's like taking you from where you were and, you know, as Trinity does, dropping you in the deep end of a whole new section. Like if you look back on the 4 years of TP, every year was like, okay, yeah, we're doing like proper new stuff. And really being pushed forward. And it's kind of like, you know, a little bit feels like you're being stretched to your breaking point. And like people break, but people don't. You know what I mean? is like it's more of that. And at times you're there and you're going like, "Can hell." I'm feeling like as soon as I have a handle on something, it opens up a world of all new things that I don't understand, and I just feel like I now understand how much I don't understand again. But then once you like turn and look back and see, geez, like I've learned a lot. You know what I mean? Like if I was kind of like, I'm an unknown about like, oh god, did I pick the right masters or not? And then I like went and was looking at masters abroad across Europe, and then like none of them are doing string theory like to the level we were getting to. Well, not none, but like the ones that I was looking at and interested in didn't get to string theory. Are they doing conformal field theory? And then kind of realizing like, yeah, those were the things that I didn't understand, that I've come to understand and I've come to really appreciate about the subject, which I maybe wouldn't have gotten anywhere else in as quick a time. There's a scholarship as well. To go back to the formalities. There's a School of Math scholarship. As I said, there's only 8 of us. And the school, I think, sponsors 2 scholarships. So because there's fewer people, more chance of getting a scholarship if you have good grades, if you do a nice personal statement. Maybe if they know you, like Marius is head of the course, if he knows you, well, obviously it's not going to be, as in like if there was an interview process or something like that. The other thing about getting in, I think it's a 2-1 requirement and some like prerequisites, i.e. quantum field theory, general relativity. But if you've done the undergrad here at Trinity and you have a 2-1 or above, barring some like severe catastrophe or some like very, very big asterisk to your application, you're kind of good to go. I remember asking Sinead Ryan, my final year project supervisor, about it, and I was kind of like, have you any idea of like how strict they are? Like it's 2-1, there's only 20 places, how many applicants are they getting? Because I had seen an information session where Sergey Frolov was like, yeah, we've had about 30 from abroad, and I have to cull them all. It was like, they don't get it. They're just like people who are applying to all these masters and all of that. So obviously, like a lot of applications from like, I don't know, vaguely related fields, but they don't have QFT and they don't have GR. They might just have a bit of physics and math, that kind of thing. Anyway, then, so I asked Sinead Ryan, and she kind of was like, oh no, you'll be grand. Like, we know the course that we teach here. This is very much like an integrated 5th year. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a step into the unknown of quantum technology. It's very much like what we've done and what we've learned. Like, the kind of story of the narrative of theoretical physics from the year 1900 to now. Which I think kind of is what 3rd and 4th year tracks. It like goes from Einstein to quantum field theory and kind of when it's like you finish 4th year and you kind of feel like we've hit the mid-60s, maybe the 70s. And like, you know, like at the end of quantum field theory, it's like, okay, and then we find that we have to introduce renormalization, but time's up. I can't like teach you renormalization yet. But you get to learn that in the classes, which is nice. So yeah, just 1 year, high level stuff, no faff. And there's a nice atmosphere of learning. So yeah, what I mean by that is the kind of things I said about Marius, just being like, it's all right if you don't have this prerequisite, like we're here just to encourage learning and exposure to this really interesting stuff. Like I'm reminded of what Michael said about exposure to extreme competence, which does incite imposter syndrome, but also is like really energizing in a way, because it's like, I don't know, this is like theoretical physics is niche. College at this level is pretty niche. As regards to like, you know, if we think about the whole of careers and of employment, to be pushing ourselves and learning stuff this complex at this speed is like a very kind of singular endeavor. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't suit everyone, but it seems to suit us. In fact, we seem to really, really, really like it, which is like, I don't know, I feel like you can forget that. You can forget how much like learning can be enjoyable, and you can forget your reasons for picking this and doing this and why you didn't do something else. And one of those is exposure to extreme competence. Really difficult ideas. Like it's so rewarding to come to understand something, be it like a bit of code running properly, a new research lead, or like what we do, which is real pen and paper maths. Another thing I was thinking when Connor was talking there, and he was going like, don't worry, there's no experiments. I was like, yeah, don't worry, there's no coding. Honestly.
You did the last pathway, I guess.
Yeah, if you do the last pathway, there's coding, but but none of us did. So yeah, no, it's a bit of like an analog masters. You could do it with just pen and paper and textbooks. You just might have to buy a lot of textbooks. And like, I don't know, ask someone else to print out review papers that you need to read. you do need a computer. Okay, so why should I not do this masters then? The other obvious question, because clearly I've sold it so well to everyone. So this mathematical physics with theoretical physics, I think I've been sort of hinting at this a little bit. And this is something that I've only really come to understand the past few weeks talking to friends of mine in fourth year who are like picking between master's courses. It's a distinction that's like kind of subtle, but never really explicitly said or illuminated between mathematical physics and theoretical physics, because it's not really a distinction and they are like overlapping. And it's how like quantum physics and what we think of as quantum physics, quantum field theory is that and it also isn't that. You know what I mean? Like if we were to go and explain to people that we're learning quantum field theory, they'd be like, oh, like quantum physics, or like states and Schrodinger, and it's like kind of the same, but it's kind of different. Like the ideas of quantum field theory don't line up. I don't know what I'm really saying about quantum physics here, but what I'm trying to make, mathematical physics, theoretical physics, usually you find theoretical physicists live in departments of physics, schools of physics, mathematical physicists live in schools of maths. And what you'll also find this distinction here, which is the nice distinction we always see in theoretical physics going forward, it's kind of general relativity, cosmology down this side, particle physics, standard model physics kind of over there down that side. So the idea being theoretical physics is, by definition, a theory of physics. So we have a physical system which we observe, like we observe physical phenomena. From those observations, we want to develop theory which describes it. So you're constantly marrying theoretical development, experimental observation. And the go-forward ball with theoretical physics is discrepancies. So as precision improves and improves and improves in hadron colliders, precision improves and improves and improves with theoretical computation, theoretical expectations, and then any discrepancies that we see, we're like trying to probe new physics. So let's try to explain why we expect this to happen, but something slightly different happens. So in that sense, theoretical physics it's theory, it's abstract. We're using very like abstract mathematical tools to describe things, but it's sort of its vision and its purpose is towards observables, things we actually see happening, processes between particle collisions, that kind of thing. Like superconductors, like observing the forces that we see. Mathematical physics then, from my point of view, it seems like is more interested in, okay, we live in a physical world and we have systems which are set up in a physical way. So let's consider a system in which there are forces which interact with particles. How much rich mathematical structure can we draw and derive from such a system? And it really is more about digging and digging and digging and digging into mathematical structures behind processes which could occur given a system composed of forces and particles. So, like, we've been asking in like string theory lectures and ADS CFT kind of more and more questions about, okay, how would this link back to the standard model? How could we derive like some certain laws of physics, like how come everything is massless and nothing is really? And the kind of answer you keep getting is like, well, it's not that you're missing the point, but it seems that it's much more about probing the structures underneath, kind of trying to peel back the curtain as far as we can go, in the hopes that one day will lead back around to being applied in some other area. Maybe it's just because it's interesting. Like you think of abstract maths as a whole, it's that, the more you get into it, the less it actually applies to the real world, to anything. It just is for the sake of doing it. You know what I mean? So that's what, from my understanding, and again, like I'm learning this, I'm not even a full year in, and I'm coming to understand it more and more week on week as I do it more and more. It feels like mathematical physics is much more about, okay, like, I suppose a nice example is like, how do we had Newton's laws for the celestial bodies for planets. There's discrepancies that we see there. Can we use theory to explain those discrepancies? Turns out we have to use maths, like the mathematics of curvature and differential geometry, to describe that. From there, we can push much further into differential geometry, into abstract mathematics, into topology, and start thinking more about like black holes and what actually happens in them, and all that kind of jazz. So it's like a subtle difference, but one to keep in mind, because I really wanted to study particle physics and wanted to know more about it, and have found that I haven't gotten nearly enough particle physics or standard model content that I wanted or would have expected from this, because it does say it's a high energy physics master's. But on the other hand, if I had gone somewhere for a particle physics master's, for master's in a school of physics, I probably wouldn't have gotten nearly as much exposure to super abstract mathematics, which is really interesting because it's so fundamental, if that makes sense. Which leads me into my next point, why not to do this master's, because there are many opportunities abroad. I feel like it often feels like, I think it must be the imposter syndrome, and it probably is the same everywhere. But it feels like in Trinity, you're like, oh God, not only Trinity, but like, you know, Oxford's a world away, or like Harvard. Geez, I'd never go there. I couldn't get into, you know, Yale or something. But then you think about like, Trinity is actually the best on paper college in Ireland. And once we get to the end of the degree, we are actually on par with anywhere else. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is like, don't feel it's a barrier. Don't feel like you're not good enough to go abroad, because you absolutely are. Sarah and Luke are going to be going abroad, to name but a few. Perfect introduction. Luke, if you'd like to take the floor and tell us all. So what I would encourage, whether you know you already want to do the master's here, or a master's here, or stay in Dublin, or whether you don't know at all, like, we are all gatherers and appreciators of information. So go and like inform yourselves about where the theoretical physics is happening. Or if you're more interested in mathematical physics, or pure maths, or just like quantum physics, you know, just start looking up places and reading about the things that they have. From my readings, these are the kind of big hitters that I've found. Obviously Cambridge, Oxford, for kind of anything mathematical. I think Cambridge has part 3. Cambridge is a more like well-beaten track from here to Cambridge for maths masters. There's a lot of people that you can like contact and talk to, which I'm sure the TPSA is in contact with and has, I don't know. Edinburgh then has the Peter Higgs Centre, so it's really good theoretical physics there. Durham has very good theoretical physics. King's Imperial as well in London, actually not the very high level colleges, they have very good master's courses in physics, maths, theoretical physics, mathematical physics. Other ones then that I found myself, there is a 2-year master's between Zurich, ETH, and Paris called Polytechnic, where you do 1 year in each in particle physics. EPFL then, Lausanne, obviously EPFL and ETH are going to have very strong links to CERN because they're in Switzerland. So if you're really interested in CERN and particle physics and that's where you want to go, would very much recommend, you know, looking those up and having a look. Munich and other places in Germany are all kind of under the Max Planck Institute. It's not a conglomerate, but there is, you know, that organization in Germany for pushing the boat forward in terms of physics and mathematics. Germany also very, very strong for mathematics. Bonn, Heidelberg, I think I would assume Berlin, Munich as well. But Bonn specifically has a very, very strong history for mathematics. Other places then for physics, Amsterdam, Groningen in the Netherlands. I mean, like, colleges in the Netherlands are very good, as we know, for physics as well. The other place, Leiden's in Sweden, isn't it? No. Lund is in Sweden. Lund. There's a university in Sweden called Lund, which is very good. And then Trieste in Italy is where the ICTP is, the International Centre for Theoretical Physics. So Trieste is somewhere that I'm very interested myself in going to, or like, I was like almost definitely going to go there and do a master's until I went to apply, and their master's in theoretical physics is in Italian. So that kind of cut the legs out from under me. But yeah, the University of Trieste has a very, very strong and big group for theoretical physics. Then the International Centre for Theoretical Physics is like really near it, and it's technically called the Abdus Salam International Centre for Theoretical Physics. Was set up as a way to encourage the study of physics and theoretical physics very much specifically from people in parts of the developing world. So it like tries to link in with lots of places in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, South America. And it just seems like a very, very cool place to either visit. They do summer schools, or like to get involved with. And then, yeah, these were more for like if you want to go to maths or abroad, Oxbridge and MIT. So I think, was there anything else I wanted to say specifically about why not to do this master's? Yeah, no, so it goes, yeah, the last thing is what should I do with my life? What should you do with your life? Do whatever you want with it. I think I've actually said I was going to like linearly go through all these points, but I kind of mixed them all in together and said what I wanted to say about this point, which is like, this stuff is really hard. You can like forget how good we all are at it because it feels like we're really bad. So yeah, like, believe in yourself. This is hard stuff. I like doing it well. Oh yeah, also, take your time. That was the only thing I wanted to say. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to apply for a PhD as soon as you do a master's. You do not have to do a master's as soon as you take a year. Because often you'll find if you take a year away from it, you'll realize how much you miss it. Or like you'll actually like kind of solidify, thinking back, the aspects of it that you really liked and the aspects you really didn't, which will inform your decision going forward. But I really do feel like in the middle of the semester, it's very hard to make a well-informed decision because your head is so full and so fried of all the learning. So take your time and believe in yourself. No, all good? Yeah, that's it.
So I am not a postgraduate student yet, but I'm going to talk about the Martingale Scholarship. So kind of leading on what Jack was talking about the different kind of masters that are offered in different countries. So I knew I didn't want to stay in Ireland. I was looking at a lot of places in the EU because they're cheaper for EU students. And like I said, like Jack was saying, I kind of came across the fact that most of them are 2 years, and also most of them we have already covered a lot of the content. So I didn't really want to spend a year doing stuff I've already done. So then I was kind of faced with the problem of looking at UK masters and thinking, wow, this looks great, and then they cost like 20 grand or something. So no idea. So basically, this is the scholarship that I have and that Luke also has. So the Martingale Foundation, they're trying to basically get people who wouldn't be able to pursue a master's in the UK due to the financial barriers, specifically in mathematical sciences. So that's like broad term. TP is in that, in case anyone wants to swap careers. So is pure math, applied math, statistics, that kind of thing. And yeah, so they, as a foundation, they're pretty new. Last year was the first run of scholarships, and then the way it worked last year was kind of different, but at the moment the way it works is you apply for master's funding, and then having completed your master's, or kind of while you're completing your master's, you can apply for them to fund your PhD as well. Yeah, exactly. So what the scholarship consists of is it's fully funded, so they cover your fees. There's 8 universities there that are partnered with them. So that did change, I think, between this year and last year. So it could change for next year, in that they added more universities this year. But I'd imagine it'll probably stay the same. So they cover your tuition fees. There's research expenses, stipend, or not stipend, but money you can access, and then you also get a tax-free stipend. So that tax-free stipend is based on what the equivalent of the IRC, the UK Research Council, pays PhD students. So it is like not a great amount of money for a job, but it is a great amount of money for doing a master's that you don't normally get paid for, basically. And then yeah, the stipend, they're kind of committed to covering at least that amount. So they might pay you more than the Research Council stipend, but they don't really specify. We haven't actually got a specific number yet because it varies a bit. It's like based on what university you're going to, because I'll be in London, so I'll get more because the cost of living in London is more, basically. So there's lots of little caveats like that. And then, other than the money, they offer tailored support for the Martingale PhD scholarship. So when you're applying for PhD funding, they'll help you apply for that. They also were very helpful when we were applying for master's programs. So we could kind of email them at any point and even send them drafts of things and ask for advice on that. They're all kind of experts on writing these applications, and so that's a really good resource as well. And then the Martingale Development Program, we have yet to kind of have an experience with, but will be happening next year. So that I imagine will be similar to the Laidlaw stuff, if anyone is familiar with that, in that it's going to be sort of leadership workshops, that kind of thing. But basically, it will be workshop type things with the other Martingale scholars with the aim of improving career skills and soft skills and things like that. And there's lots of opportunities to network with all the people in academia, which is always great and fun. So eligibility criteria, very important. This key point is a summary because you need to look at their website. It's very specific, but basically you need to get first or 2-1 degree in maths or related subjects, or TB. Need to want to be able to start a master's in the UK in September. Qualify for home fee status. So this is a big one. A lot of people don't realise that that most Irish people do. So again, super long document from the UK government that you can read and figure out if you qualify for home fee status. But essentially, if you're an Irish citizen and you've lived here and attended school here, you do. So that means you pay the same fees as someone from the UK, which are still quite expensive, but better than from abroad. And then, I think that fourth point there, attended state-funded school. So the actual thing on the website is GCSEs are equivalent at a state-funded school or have received a scholarship to go to a private-funded school. But I think, basically, if you did your junior cert in a non-private school, you're good. And then you need to be in receipt of student fees during your undergrad. I don't know the specifics of whether you need the maintenance grant as well as the fees being covered. I think that is what the website implies, though, that you need to be getting maintenance as well. And I think it is for the 4 years of your undergrad. But again, read the website if you're properly interested, because it's a bit specific. And then application process. So this was what it was this year. October is the application deadline. So that application is sort of a standard enough one in terms of application for scholarship type things. And it's a lot of questions about there was one question that was what's your journey been? So that was just talk about your degree and kind of what you've been up to. Questions on kind of your career goals, why you want to do the masters, pretty general stuff. And you needed to have I think one reference. Is it one or two? Might have been two.
Two.
Yeah, 2 references for that as well. Then November time we had interviews. So obviously, if your application is successful, you can be selected to be interviewed. The interview process consists of one with the Martingale team, so with non-academics whose job is to run the foundation essentially, and then one with academics. So mine was I had mentioned in my application some stuff about my final year project, which touches on conformal field theory. Mine was with conformal field theories, and another guy who did GR. And they're not necessarily going to be super related. I think I kind of either got lucky or was unlucky. It's hard to say with that because it's mathematical sciences. So again, like you could be talking to someone who's a stats professor or something like that. And the academic interview was grand. I think like they asked me sort of to talk a bit about various internships I'd done and like explain. I had done a lot of work on like the standard model for internships, so they asked me just to describe that, and I like wrote down the equation, and then they were like, okay, and what does this bit mean, and what does this bit mean, and that kind of thing. And then there was like they had a list of or like a stack of questions that were very like math questions, physics questions, but kind of stuff that you could talk through and get through. The one I ended up doing was like something like the number of primes below a certain number or that kind of thing. Basically, they just want you to show that you can think on your feet and you're smart, I guess. And then, yeah, so after the interviews, I think the 24th of November was the day offers were supposed to be made. They actually called us the day before with an offer, which was a little bit scary. But yeah, it was great. And then early December is the showcase event. Oh yeah, to note, the interview as well for us was in Edinburgh. So we did have to go to Edinburgh. But they reimbursed us for flights and stuff. And then early December was a showcase event. We had to go to London for that. It was the 8th of December. It was like 3 days before exams. It wasn't ideal, but we did it and it was great. That was actually a really good event. Met all the other scholars, or scholars in principle, is what they call us at that point. And there we met with, they had like a kind of a carousel type thing of, okay, carousel type thing is the wrong, that's how they worded it. I don't know what they meant by that either. Like they had tables set up with people from all the different universities. So every one of the partner universities has like a someone from the academic team who's like partnered with Martingale or who represents Martingale at the university. So some of those people were there and they were just there to answer questions. It's really like very interesting. There were a lot of people there who were like really high up in their field, so it was cool to be able to talk to them. And they had a mix of like PhD students and like professors or whatever. So yeah, that was great. And then early February, master's applications were due. So we have a specific deadline to apply to the master's. So even like some masters will have applications open until the summertime, but for us it was 4th February. All of them were due by, except for Oxford, which was due the 18th or 19th of January. And then March we get funded offers are made. So that was actually today. But yeah, so basically I'm kind of going to touch on this on this slide. So the thing about the scholarship is they can fund, so the funded offer we got today is for whatever university. You may have gotten into other universities, but they will pick one to fund you for. So they kind of want to have like a spread of people at the different universities, and I think the way they assign them is you rank your preferences, and then the universities will like rank their preferences for which of the scholars they want, and then there's some sort of a like matching algorithm type thing, and yeah. So basically, something to consider because it might end up that you aren't getting into the one that you really want to get into, or that you get into the university, but you won't get funding for it. But of course, you can still go. You just won't get paid to do it. So I mean, you know, the money's nice. So yeah, so like tomorrow we'll actually find out if we got into any of the other universities that we didn't get like a funded place for. But I mean, won't make too much of a difference, I don't think. Yeah, so other things to consider, not going to the UK. I mean, I'm not like too enthusiastic about going to the UK. I don't think I would have chosen to live there if they didn't have such attractive master's programs. I probably would have gone somewhere in Europe, but I'm sure it's great and I'll have a lovely time. And then, yeah, even within the UK, not all the universities are partner universities. In fairness, though, those 8 do cover I think a lot of the major ones. And like I said, they might partner with more universities in the future. And then also a key point, not every course of the partner universities are eligible. So Edinburgh was on that list of the partner universities. The TP and the Theoreticial Physics and the Mathematical Physics Masters in Edinburgh are not on the list of like courses, at least not for this year. And I do think they might change that because they had kind of a few complaints from people who wanted to do TP type degrees, type masters, that there wasn't as much choices for other things. So like wouldn't let that turn you off basically. And then one thing to consider positively is that opportunity to apply for PhD funding following the masters. Like that is a huge deal to kind of have the PhD funding from an external source, so not applying to the Research Council in the UK or the Research Council here. It basically would mean that you have an awful lot of choice then going to like picking who you want to do your PhD with. So it would have to be at one of the partner universities, but you can move to a different place, like following your masters. And like if you go to a professor and say I have funding to do a PhD, most of them I would imagine would be like okay. Like most of the issue in getting a PhD tends to be the funding. So yeah, that's a huge deal. Now obviously we don't know too much about the application process for this yet because that will be happening next year. But hopefully it works well, I guess. And I think that was it. Yeah, that's all I would say. Questions? Nope.
I don't have a question, but on the topic of like scholarships and payment and money, something I forgot to say in mine. The few universities I threw up in Europe are like significantly cheaper, which is like that does play a role. Like the masters here at Trinity is about 10 grand, just above. Ones in the UK can be like 20 grand.
Well, yeah, like 15 grand usually, I think. Yeah.
I think the 2-year one in Switzerland, obviously Switzerland is famously expensive, was literally like €700 a semester for 4 semesters.
I think the Netherlands there might not be fees at all.
Netherlands might. Germany there's like no fees. It's like 300 quid.
A lot of places they're just like student contribution or something. So it's like
Of course, living expenses come into this.
I will say for
That's
Germany,
the exact reason why I'm here and not somewhere else is because I didn't have to. Staying here means I don't have to like pay rent.
What were you saying?
there's a scholarship in Germany, the DAT scholarship, which you can apply for. But that's not what this policy is. But look at it.
yeah,
Very, very good.
and George Moore as well.
And George Moore.
Yeah, especially if you have laid off. They love that's it. They love them. Other than that, I didn't because like I did a bunch of research on scholarships before applying to this, and this did seem to be kind of the most specific one, as in it's for maths, and also it takes like socioeconomic background into account. Because I think you can get some SUSI contribution towards master's fees sometimes, so something to consider if you want to stay here. But other than that,
Right, so the last thing we're going to talk about is the postgraduate survey thing that I've set up with TPSA. And that it touches on some of the ideas Jack and Sarah mentioned, where you want to look at other places but you're not sure where to apply, because TP here is 4 years, a lot of masters in Europe are 2 years. So you have already limited options before you even started looking out of practical purposes. So in 4th year, really busy, you have a project, you're trying not to fall apart in QFT, you have 76 lift-on questions to do, you don't need more work to do. And a lot of the things with Trinity is that it's easy to apply to because you're in Trinity, everything is in your face. But if you want to look outside of Trinity, you're really going from scratch. So year in, year out, people probably follow the same path as someone who's done it before, look at the same places, look at the same options, nearly think the same way, and you're just repeating that work. So we've put together a kind of Google form to really comprehensively build a database of where people have gone after TP, so where they've applied everywhere, where they went in the end, masters and PhD, where did the PhD funding come from, why did they pick these places, what jobs did they do it after PhDs, did they go straight into jobs, all of this, so you have not just the points in the journey, but explanations for each step as well, so that you know what your own interests are. But other than throwing a few things into Google, seeing what comes out, you don't really have a strong foundation to start from. So with this, hopefully, with enough responses, being optimistic, you can look at this database and say, okay, this person went to Cambridge, then did this, they picked these modules, I'm interested in that, or they went to this other place, and you can kind of see what you want to do right away, and it cuts out so much work. And you can say why they liked it, you go, okay, I agree with that, or I disagree, and so on. And even, I hope with enough responses, we can build like a statistical database of this many people apply to Oxford, this many people get accepted, or this many people who've applied to these places pick this one mainly. So you can go, okay, Oxford, Cambridge, Perimeter Institute, Canada, America, somewhere in Europe, and really see this trajectory everywhere to go to without having to just Google things. And you can be informed by experiences of past students. So we're gathering responses at the moment from students mostly from 2012 to 2015 graduating years. It's a bit limited, but we are getting help from the School of Maths hopefully. And the aim is that this will become like Pete's famous surveys, where fourth years will get this around when they graduate, fill it in every year, so then it will be sent back to the fourth years of the current year. So they'll go to the previous year and the years before, apply to these places, so on. And it's going to be really comprehensive and cool and helpful, hopefully. And then this year, I think there is interest in organising an alumni evening after exams. Manya Sani had said it would be really good to get former students in, so if you're in fourth year, get to talk to them, see where they've gone. Those of you who are doing masters might meet someone who's done literally the same masters, and you can go, okay, what are you doing with your life now? And hopefully they say something positive. And then that's what I hope it will be like. If you have a couple offers and you're weighing up which one to go to, you can speak to people who've gone to either, and then that will inform your decision and stuff like that. So Cass has a few responses that we've gathered so far to go through preliminarily.
Yeah, just to kind of run through things quickly because we only have the room booked for 15 minutes. I think everyone's kind of tired. Yeah, as Connor was saying, we only have kind of 2012 to 2015 now. It'd be nice for like the past year's graduating year to respond. Maybe like the years of backlog, like I don't know if like Chantal's year is pretty much still in contactable. But yeah, here's some kind of takeaways from what people have answered so far. So people went, so like 2012, 2015, there was no QFSG, as Jack was saying, it's pretty new. So HBC was pretty big. People kind of got this ideal, or this love for coding in like QFSG, or sorry, in PNS, or like the latter end of TP. So the high performance computing masters that was still around then was
it's still around now.
Yeah, but like was still around then when QFSG wasn't. Was pretty attractive. That's why it's kind of like HPC pops up a decent bit in the responses, like the Edinburgh Masters as well. Cambridge, people went for the Part 3 in the Energy Tech. I haven't heard much about the Energy Tech nowadays, but I know Part 3 is still pretty popular. And also we have people going in like chartered accountancies. People ended up in Accenture, or like one person ended up working for the central bank. Pretty like out there. But yeah, you also have people like going for Oxford, Marseille, Sussex, King's, and Imperial. I think like Connor mentioned Manya. Manya went to Imperial for the masters, and then her PhD in King's. Pretty good person to contact if that's like Thursday you want to go. You okay. Oh no. Yeah, so where do people actually end up going? Imperial was going to be quite a good follow-on from Trinity. Their had advanced courses, but it wasn't too much of a step up. Kind of like what Jack was saying, it's like a continuous step instead of some like jump. The HPC was again pretty natural follow-on from like practical numeric simulations that you do in fourth year. Well, if you want to do C++, I guess. For some reason. Again, Edinburgh, they offer more like data science-y stuff, which you don't really get in Trinity. and Cambridge is, well, one, Cambridge, and two, the like breadth of topics you can study. It's not like in QFSG and the quantum tech one where you kind of like, well, you are pretty limited in the modules you can go into. But actually like Cambridge, I think Edinburgh as well are also kind of known for their like the breadth of topics you can take. Yeah, as for like going into PhDs, it's pretty much 50-50 split. Now, to be fair, there wasn't going to be too many responses, so that's not statistically significant. But it was a pretty much 50-50 split between going in with a master's and not having a master's. The four major ways getting in were like IRC funding, ERC for the European Research Council funding, the UK Research Innovation Council, so their version of the IRC, and the student supervisors have money lying around. Like, I think two previous TPSA committee members, Sean French and Rory Campion, both been offered PhDs because there have been like SFI grants lying around. So if people are interested, I'm sure one or both of them would be interested in going to speak about that. Most people seem to base their like PhDs off of what supervisor or if a supervisor that they liked, or if they had any like experience, kind of what Michael was saying back like 2 hours ago. If you have experience with a supervisor, or you like them, or they seem interesting, it's pretty much a good bet. That's what people have been saying anyway. Topics people have done it in have been like geophysics, computational biology, and medicine, all the way up to like super strings, like what, or mine did it in like black hole thermodynamics and that whole thing. One big takeaway that was mentioned a few times was academia is not particularly nice if you're, like what Michael was saying, you're competing with some Serbian who's been locked in like the room with all of Landau since they were like 12. You have no real hope in competing with them. Like, the Wittens of the world are a bit above most of us anyway. But if you're like taking something more like applied, like condensed matter or something, then, and i.e. like better funded, like it's just a neater idea if you do want to stay in academia. Yeah, a large proportion of, well, obviously industry is an important thing. I think like most people in the room want to go into academia, but industries are very valid like route for people to take. A large proportion of the people who answered the survey didn't think they'd end up doing research, or I'm sorry, in industry. That tells you like either who answered the survey or who ended up in research or in the industry. Not really sure which. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like how academia works, which I think is a pretty common criticism, where it's like you have to publish, nothing else really matters, and like the like below minimum wage standards, again, not very nice. But people have gone from like TP degrees either through postgrads or not through postgrads and ended up working in like Google, Microsoft, Intel, or if you want to get away from tech, you can go into like EY and Accenture and consulting and that sort of thing. Somebody ended up in 2K, the people who make like NBA games. No idea how. Yeah, and then people recommended looking at like if you're interested in actuarial roles, or like Accenture is meant to be good for consulting, but not for like if you were more like a technical type of person, stay away. And then obviously the Microsoft, Googles, and Metas of the world. Great if you like computers, but also you're competing with like CS students. So having a master's or some qualification in computer science is kind of the way to go. Also, somebody mentioned this thing called like site reliability engineering. I have no idea what it is, but they said it was like a pretty hot like area for people who are like good at like problem solving and technical sort of things. So it might be worth looking into if you're interested. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think we're kind of running down on time. If anyone has any questions about the logistics of the survey or that information night, I think if you send us an email or talk to Connor once we have more things sorted out, should be good crack. Other than that, the slides for this, along with like more data, will be sent out in an email. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to mention about the survey?
No, I think that's it for the moment.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if they continue as well, when everyone graduates, you will add to it. And it'll be great for future years. Yeah.
Okay. No questions? So please do fill out the survey.